Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Perry Gee. Today, I want to talk to you about resilience, especially in light of our COVID-19 pandemic. I'm in one of my favorite spots. This is the northern Wasatch Mountains, about 10 or 15 minutes from my home. So fortunate to live here. I'm here 12 months out of the year. This is a trail in the summertime, and in the winter, it's one of my cross-country ski trails. I come here every month, and the thing that astounds me is in the wintertime, there are sometimes 15 or 20 feet of snow in this area. And the storms that blow through in the winter and spring sometimes bring winds of 60 to 80 miles an hour. And yet all the trees, all the beauty around me is still standing. It's resilient. It bounces back. And so do we. We bounce back from our storms. Maybe the storm is a difficult code or a medication error or a difficult time we had with a patient or something strange that occurred with our staffing or our scheduling, or especially the gigantic storm that is this pandemic. It is causing us to struggle. It's causing us to have anxiety. And we also know that with pandemics, literature shows that could even impact us and ultimately create PTSD. And so what can we do? Well, resilience is one of the things that we can do. And before we start to talk about resilience, I want you to be sure to realize that I'm not saying that you are not resilient. Don't let anybody tell you that if you were just more resilient, you'd be able to handle things or you'd be less burned out. That is not the issue. Everybody brings in their various degrees of resilience. We all have more one day than the other. The cool thing about resilience, again, this is in the literature, is that resilience can be cultivated, and it can be especially cultivated in nurses. There are a lot of studies and readings that show this. So my model of resilience that I've been working on for the last few years with my team has four major components. The components are hope, purpose, connection, and control. And let's go over each one of those components and talk about how you might be able to use those components to help you right now during this pandemic. First, purpose. We all had a sense of purpose when we became a nurse, or when we started in this unit that we're working in, or when we became a manager. What is our sense of purpose? We have to remember that sense of purpose. We need to be able to revive that every day when we come back to work. Why am I here? Was I here to help patients and families, or to serve humanity, or help my community? What is that sense of purpose? If we start to lose that sense of purpose, our resilience can drop. 2, connections with others. This is so important. We need to maintain our connections with others. We have important connections with our patients and families, and also with our fellow nurses. So we need to do things that can connect that. And as well, we also need to feel like we're connected to our organization, to our leadership team. This is so important. In fact, people who are in leadership roles know that isolation that they can feel if they aren't connected. Connections. If you have connections, this is another way to build resilience. If you see one of your coworkers or friends or colleagues that seems to be moving away or less connected or staying by themselves, worry about them. Ask them if everything is okay. People who are less connected have less resilience. 3rd, control. We all want control over our practice. This is so important, especially now during this pandemic. Some people are being floated. Some people are being repurposed or redeployed to different positions. They don't feel like they have control over their practice. It's very frustrating to them. It impacts their resilience. So again, let's work on control of our practice. What can we do to have more control on our practice? Part of that is learning more about the environment where we're working. When I go to the OB unit or I go to the ICU, when I learn those new skills, I have more control over my practice. One of the ways that we can find to gain more control of our practice is through certifications or participation in a professional organization. I've recently completed some research with 3,000 nurses in the Arizona area with Dr. Leslie Kelly. And in that research, we found that nurses who were certified had higher levels of resilience. Now, we don't know which one caused the other, but we know there's an association there. So give it a try. Obtain a certification. Anytime I've gotten more education in my career, I've felt like I'm more empowered. I'm more in control of my practice and my destiny. This is another important one. And then hope. Hope is the final one. And it's something that, again, sorry about the shakiness. Hope is one of those things that we can measure, by the way, right? Hope is a construct that will keep us going when nothing else is. I hope this pandemic will end soon. I hope this pandemic will end in a way that we can all maintain our health and the systems where we work. I hope that I'll still have that sense of purpose when I go to work every single day. I hope that you've got my back when I float to your unit. I hope that. I don't know that it's going to happen. I hope that. And hope is something that is connected to resilience throughout the literature. And last, I hope that I'm going to have control over my practice. Hope I'm going to do a good job when I get to that unit that I'm floating to. If I'm working in a tent where I'm swabbing people for COVID-19, I hope I know what kind of skills I'll need and how to interact with those scared people. So hope is another one of those common themes that I have been working on with my team in this model for resilience. And then what can you do? There are several things that you can do that don't cost anything, that are free and easy, and you can do it right now. One of them is what I'm doing right now. Evidence shows that if you are out in nature, it can help reduce your anxiety. And by the way, you don't have to come hiking up in the mountains to do that. You can be in your yard or a park or in your garden. And encourage you to spend some time, some quiet time in nature, or maybe some time with your family where you can re-energize. 2, any time that we can practice mindfulness or presence that will help us with resilience. We know there's lots of studies that show that resilience levels build when people practice mindfulness. But mindfulness is a skill that one needs to learn. But maybe we can just have some mindful moments. Perhaps after a difficult event, we stop and we pause and we take 3 cleansing breaths. And keep in mind, when you're doing this, you're consciously slowing down your brain. The limbic system or the reactionary system in our brains are being slowed down. If we were tense or upset or on edge, we can slow that down. We can actually lower our cortisol and other stress hormones. We can lower our heart rate and blood pressure. So try taking just some deep breaths. Stop what you're doing, take a few deep breaths, and move on. Maybe you practice it by every time you wash your hands, you take some slow, deep breaths, thinking about your breathing during that time. Maybe you take a deep breath or 2 every time you enter a different patient room. You stop, you take a second, you take a deep breath, and then I go into that patient room. And the reason this is so important is so now I can be present for that patient. Right? I could forget about what just happened in the last room, and I can be present for my patient. So those are things that you can do. If you want to learn more about mindfulness, check with your chaplains, take a course, download an app. It's free, it's easy, it does take a little practice. I've been doing mindfulness every single day now, and I've increased my mindfulness during this pandemic, and it's really helped. Gratitude is another thing that we can do. 2 or 3 times a week, write down something you're grateful for. Start practicing that positive attitude, that grateful attitude. I am so grateful that I had a good cup of coffee today. I'm so grateful for my pet. I'm so grateful for my home or my family or my friends or my job. Think about things that you're grateful for. Consider writing them down in a journal. Write them down 2 or 3 times a week in a journal and just note them. Research shows that people who keep a gratitude journal have less anxiety, less stress, and reduced stress hormones over time. You can do that as well. And then those connections with others, cultivate those connections. And right now during this pandemic, I would encourage you to step up your game in that. Keep track of your friends. Keep track of your peers. Hey, it looks like you had a rough day. Is there anything that I can do? Follow up with them. Hey, can I call you at home later tonight just to make sure you're still okay? That code was really difficult, or that unexpected death, or maybe that patient who had COVID that you felt was unsupported during their death. Can I call you about that? Can I call you tomorrow? You know what? You've really had a difficult week. Here are some counseling resources like EAP or others. This is a time to reach out for help, not a time to withdraw. Okay, so look out for your peer. And if you're starting to struggle yourself, talk to your peers, talk to someone. Talk to one of your hospital chaplains or a social worker or somebody in EAP. Talk to a trusted friend. Cultivate your connections during this difficult time. You guys, this is a rough time, this pandemic. This is the hardest thing that I've seen in my long nursing career. But we can get through this. We'll bounce back. We'll be better and stronger for it. Thank you, and I hope you feel well.